Hi there, and welcome to the Cotswold Explorer. I'm Robin Shuckburgh, and we're exploring the wonderful region of the Cotswolds in southwest England. For the last couple of years, we've been following in the footsteps of Herbert Evans, who wrote this wonderful book, Highways and Byways in Oxford and the Cotswolds, in 1905. And today, you'll find Ross, Widget, Gizmo and me in a little village called Cowley in Gloucestershire. Now we're here for an unusual reason. This house that you see behind me is an hotel. It's recently been bought. They're spending huge amounts of money on it. They're doing it up. The very first house built on this site, however, was built by an ancestor of mine. I'm going to show you around. I'm going to show you the church in which he's buried and tell you the story of a very, very ancient ancestor of me. Come with me. Visiting Cowley village with its large manor and the small pretty church has turned out to be a rather startling revelation to me. At the risk of making it all a little too personal, and certainly more personal than normal, I'll tell you the story as it happened. Evans, when visiting this place on his travels in 1905, related a tale about the church, which I will now read to you. The small Norman church to the east of the large modern manor house with its terraced gardens overlooking an ornamental lake conforms to the Cotswold type. The east end is lighted by two small windows in the gable, one above the other, and the wall below is blank. The perpendicular tower and porch appear to be the only later additions. The former contains a peal of 6 bells, presented by the squire of Queen Anne's day, who was a devotee of campanology, and used to travel about the country with a company of bell ringers, till at last he had wrung away his fortune. A small story, but one, if you will forgive the pun, which rang a bell with me. It was only years after I read that, and when I came to the church and saw the name on the memorial stones in the floor, that it all came back to me. My mother's maiden name was Brett, and the graves in the floor of the church are those of members of the Brett family. I went home and looked up the excellent history of the Bretts written by my cousin Christopher Brett, the 5th Viscount Esher, and this is the passage I found. Henry lived the peaceful life of a country gentleman for many years until he died in 1674 at the age of 87. He and his wife Margaret, who died many years before him, were both buried in the church at Cowley, inside which their memorials can still be seen. He was succeeded by his grandson, another Henry Brett, who was only 17 at the time. This Henry, coming early to his inheritance, behaved quite differently to his grandfather. An inveterate spender, he started in 1675 by entirely rebuilding Cowley Manor house at very considerable cost. Meanwhile, he developed a passion for campanology, an extremely expensive hobby if, like him, you finance a team of bell ringers to take round the country with you and donate bells to villages that have none or not enough. By 1704, Henry was in debt, owing £1,810, and was forced to sell his estate at Hatherley, repayment of the debt being part of the consideration. In 1721, again heavily in debt, he conveyed Cowley to his son-in-law, William Morgan of Bristol, in return for an annuity and again for the repayment of his debts. So that's where it all went. Since the days of my 18th century 7-times great-grandfather, his house has entirely disappeared, and in its place was built the substantial 19th century building you see today. It was designed by the elder George Somers Clark, who had been a pupil and assistant to James Barry. He built it for James Hutchinson, a London stockbroker, in Barry's favourite Italianate style, with extraordinary stone detailing. It was extended again between 1896 and 1902 for Sir James Horlick, he of the malt drink fame, who has been sending us all to sleep for over a century. It was Clark who took advantage of the truly astonishing site to form terraces with lakes and cascades dropping down to the River Churn in the valley below. From the great south terrace, mostly detailed by Briggs, steps and grass lead down to the upper lake. The link between this and the lower lake is made by a great wall with steps on either side, ornamented with pilasters and with fountain masks with horns and shell heads, pouring water into a water staircase and oval pool decorated with stone lions and eagles. There are substantial losses of statuary, and in particular trees, from this astonishing garden. Horlick apparently planted over 700,000 trees, but make no mistake, this is still a truly extraordinary place. In the 20th century, the manor has been a nursing home and a hotel, but recently it's been bought by a highly respected international hotel group called the Experimental Group. They've called in the spectacularly trendy designer Dorothy Meilichsen, who has worked on projects in Paris, London, Ibiza, Menorca, Venice, Basel, Monaco and New York. And I asked them what their plans were. And in the most perfect PR speak, this is what they said. Overall, we wanted to do what we love to do, a mix of geometric elements, a mix of styles, of eras, celebrating the multiple alterations of the buildings from 1695 to the 2000s. So at the end, a joyeux bordel. Our main inspiration was of course the building itself, mixing very classical inspirations as a tribute to the original manor. Blurred maple, verdigris, sophisticated rattan furniture, mixed with contemporary elements such as enamelled lava, lime walls, very graphic fabrics and carpets, fully upholstered furniture, bold colours, glossy lacquer, and a lot of checkerboard patterns. This latter a tribute to Alice in Wonderland. They tell me that Lewis Carroll wrote Alice at Cowley Manor and would have been inspired by the grounds. I hadn't heard this before, but I'm sure they're right. They tell me that they've hidden small doors, small elements from Alice on the carpets, rugs, fabrics, painted on the walls, all in different scales, even sculpted in lava. They plan to open this summer, and to be perfectly honest, I can't wait to see the results. This is such a breathtaking place that in the hands of such a distinguished designer, it will, I'm sure, be simply spectacular. Perhaps I'll take my wife there on our 51st wedding anniversary and try to imagine what it was like for my ancestor Henry, a spendthrift after my own heart, to live in such a place. I hope you've enjoyed our little trip around Cowley Manor at this extraordinarily privileged moment between owners, sort of. It's being done up at the moment. In about 6 months' time, it will be a thriving hotel, one of the greatest, no doubt, in the county. We've enjoyed ourselves a lot. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can find us on all the normal platforms, of course. Look for our website, thecotswoldexplorer.co.uk, where you'll find much more detail about all the things we've done in the past. And we will see you somewhere else in the Cotswolds in the very near future.